One of the biggest things that I did when I was drinking alcohol was looking outside of myself for something or somewhere to lay the blame. And usually that was on the alcohol itself. It's an easy target because it's, the alcohol you consume and the alcohol is the problem. I mean, if you weren't consuming the alcohol, you probably wouldn't have the problems because you'd be dealing with the problems, right? But the alcohol is not to blame for anything. The alcohol is just a liquid in a bottle. It's not going to do anything if it's left in that bottle. It can only do something, it can only damage you when it's inside your body, right? So when people blame the alcohol for it, they're becoming a victim of themselves more than anything else, right? And I'm not saying that it's wrong to do that. It's a natural response, I think, to come to that conclusion. But the reality is that alcohol is merely the tool. It's the means to an end. If you want to get out of your face, if you want to get drugged up, you're going to do it, right? And if it's not alcohol, it's going to be something else. It could be heroin, it could be cocaine, it could be weed. Whatever it is, you're going to find another piece of the jigsaw to fit into that same hole, if you get what I mean. The underlying behavior, the rituals, the sequences, the habit, right? They're all part of the problem. But I believe that it's your thinking or your lack of thinking which is the real culprit here, not the alcohol, right? So it's your attitudes, your expectations, your assumptions. These are all things which lead you down that path, especially when you've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I was drinking for over 30 years. So these attitudes, these expectations and presumptions were all part and parcel of the process that I had grown up into. These things were almost put into me from an early age by my parents, by my uncles and aunties, by my dad's friends that we used to see, by society at large. So these are all things that are programmed into you to believe this kind of stuff. But you grow. Everyone grows. I think it's unfortunate that it takes that long. It took me over 30 years to come to that conclusion. It was only when I saw my son going down the same route that it woke me up, and I started to really examine my own attitudes about that. My own what did I expect was going to happen? So it's those things. If you have the attitude of, well, it's not my fault, it's something else's fault. If you have the attitude of the responsibility is outside of me, it's not my responsibility to do this. If you have the attitude of entitlement, that you're entitled to something for whatever reason, it doesn't make any difference. If you have that expectation in your life or that assumption, then you're going to be in trouble. Another reason why people blame the outside, blame the alcohol or blame whatever it is outside of themselves is what I call emotional primacy. And that's when you have your emotions first. So you have your emotional, you react to your emotions without thinking about it. And I'm not saying that you do this across the board, but when it comes to this kind of thing, when it comes to, I know I've been there, I've gone through this whole thing where I'm tired and I feel that tiredness and I feel shitty. And I think to myself, or I say to myself, no, you deserve to have a drink. That's emotional thinking above rational thinking. When you say to yourself, well, yeah, one won't do me any harm, or I'll stop next week, or I'll cut down, or all of these things are emotional thinking because you're not thinking logically. You're not looking at alcohol for what it really is. When you leaf through a magazine and you see an article that says that there's benefits in certain properties within any type of alcohol, wine or beer or whatever it is, and you take notice of that and you go, no, that fits in with what I am, I knew there was something good about it, You ignore the fact that it's only small amounts of alcohol that really give you the benefit, if at all benefit. But then you ignore anything else. I mean, there was a study done recently which looked at, I think it was 300 or 400 different studies. I can't remember what they call it, but it's a big broad study where they haven't done the research themselves, but they're looking at the research of other people. And they found that their conclusions were that there was not any safe amount of alcohol that you can drink. anybody who drinks, anybody who drinks a lot of alcohol understands that, from a very basic level. When you start drinking first, look at the response that your body gives you. That should be enough. It should tell you enough. Your body doesn't want that stuff inside of you. So, when I'm talking about that emotional primacy, when using your emotions, you want to do something. I mean, we start drinking because of an emotional response. We don't want to feel that we're lesser than our peers. We don't want to look foolish in front of people. Oh, by the way, we've just done a video for our members on Habits Unplugged for this. This is how we pay the bills. So, this is part of the video which is sponsored by us. So, I mean, there's a link down below where you can get a 7-day trial to Habits Unplugged. You can also go over to our Patreon page. It's my personal Patreon page. We used to have one for Habits Unplugged or for Alcohol Mastery. And that's still there, but we're sort of shifted over to Kevin O'Hara now. So if you want to go over there and you can have a look at that. But that emotional primacy thing, I think it's easier, and it gets easier and easier and easier to think with your emotions, to react to your emotions rather than reacting to your rational thinking. The more into alcohol you get, the more into any drug you get, the more you rely on a drug as a crutch. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Another problem with this is sort of a knowledge shortfall. So people blame other things because they don't understand themselves. They don't understand the alcohol, the mental frameworks that surround alcohol as well. This is one of the problems. When you are told that most people can drink alcohol and there's no problem to them, and other people can't, and you think, well, it's outside of myself, then, that's for me is mental framework issue, but it's also a knowledge shortfall, so it's all about responsibility, going out there and looking for the information yourself, being truthful with yourself. I mean, it's one of the biggest things that is going to help you throughout this journey, to get into the best possible version of yourself, is to have that thirst for knowledge, to have that thirst for truth more than anything else. I mean, there's so much knowledge out there, there's so much information out there that it's very difficult to even get a small percentage of what's out there, so you have to be focused in what you're doing. But you should listen to your body and listen to what that's saying to you. Listen to what your instinct is saying to you, because I think most people have got a good instinct, a good physical instinct of what's right or wrong for themselves, but they're being overridden by cultural propaganda, familial propaganda from your family and your friends, and all that kind of stuff. So I really think that when you've got those, when you can dial in your own expectations and your assumptions, or you switch them around and you start to perceive things in a different way, you switch the frame that you're looking at and you start looking at things from a different point of view, from the short term into the long term, from that instant gratification mentality into the long term, what's good for me in the long term, what's good for me physically, what's good for me mentally, what's good for my life, where do I want to be when I'm 75 years of age, Do I want to be this washed out person who's just drank all their lives? Or do I want to be somebody who is still growing, and still achieving things? That's a possibility in everyone's life. So, look at that, look at your knowledge shortfalls, look at your mental frameworks. At the end of the day, you've got to think, you've got to understand that it's your thinking that's at fault here. It's your thinking that's at fault, and that is then guiding your actions. Once your thinking is at fault, then, by definition, your actions are also going to be faulty at the same time. So I hope you got something out of that. I'm Kevin O'Hara for Habits Unplugged. We help people to stop drinking alcohol and to live the best possible versions of themselves. Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you soon. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.